Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unveiling the Truth. This is your host, Mark Howitt, and today we have an awesome show planned for you guys. Definitely an innovation of mine personally. And this is episode 19 of Unveiling the Truth. We're moving along there. I know I'm only broadcasting on the Saturdays, but I am planning a couple, I guess you would say, off the calendar broadcasts in the near future. So I've just been developing some topic matter to discuss on those broadcasts, and 2 hours is a long time to do a broadcast, so definitely need to get enough material to present in a 2 hour time format. I mean, a lot of radio shows and other shows and podcasts out there are, 1 hour long. Mind you, there is some that are longer than even 2 hours. But when I'm only discussing one topic at a time or interviewing guests, 2 hours is a nice chunk of time. So I'm planning a couple of them that won't be on a Saturday. So definitely look forward to presenting some very interesting information that hasn't been discussed too much. So I don't want to spill the beans on today's show, unfortunately, but expect some good broadcasts in the very near future with some very, very profound and interesting material. But moving on to today's show, today we have Fritz Springmeier. Now, I mean, years ago when I first started really researching into this stuff, into this rabbit hole, I guess you could say, and started unveiling the truth, Fritz Springmeier was definitely one of the innovators for me. I mean, his research into Freemasonry, into mind control, into the families and the aristocrats and the monarchies, the bloodlines, the Illuminati, secret societies. He's definitely got a wealth of information and a wide variety of topics and subject matter. So I'm just waiting to hear from Fritz there, and then we'll be bringing him onto the show. But definitely looking forward to discussing many things with him. He's got quite a story to tell as well. I mean, he's been through a lot of things, definitely, but he's written many books on the subject. His most popular book is, of course, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Many people are familiar with that material, whether it be his seminars he was doing or the book itself. That's how I came to know about Fritz Springmeier, was through his broadcasts on YouTube, some of the videos that he was doing. I believe they were in the 90s when he was doing this, and they contained so much deep information that was just mind-blowing at the time. It definitely got me looking into the right areas on where to find the truth and stuff, so I thought it was very, very appropriate to have him on the show today, because he definitely presents the truth in a way that is very, very full of information, good solid facts, and I mean, he's a great guy as well. He's a great speaker and an innovation of mine. But I wanted to get on to a couple other things too before I have Fritz come on to the show. I've been researching a lot lately. I mean, I've been trying to keep up with my 6 to 8 hours of researching, whether I stay up till 4 in the morning doing it or, at my breaks, whenever I have a break throughout the day, reading or watching documentaries. I've been trying to pump my brain full of information, new information, and trying to, connect the dots and piece these puzzle pieces together to form the bigger picture. And it's been quite the interesting journey, definitely. I've been researching a lot of various subject matter, such as, the world wars, countries, how they started, the United Nations, the League of Nations, obviously, all sorts of things, but a lot of this was in preparation for the broadcast I'll be doing in a couple weeks from now, Hitler's escape from Germany. Now that's quite an interesting subject, I have to say. The information I'm going to be presenting in that broadcast is going to be mind-blowing for all of you out there. I mean, everybody that I've talked to about that broadcast in person, not online or anything, but in person, they've definitely they don't know too much about it. They think that Hitler committed suicide, and I think the facts I'm going to present and the pieces of the puzzle that I fit together will portray a unique perspective on the situation. It won't entirely be about Hitler's escape from Germany or his supposed Escape from Germany, but there will be other materials in that broadcast as well that's very, very interesting, which is leading me on to other subject matter for the future. So I do have a lot of great, great ideas for future broadcasts. And again, I wanted to mention anybody out there wanting to get in touch with me to discuss anything, if you have comments, you just want to get in touch to say hello, anything like that, give me a shout. You know where to find me. Go to the unveilingthetruth.com website. Send me an email on there. And I also want to give a big shout out to my friend Mark Mahonen, who came over to my house yesterday and gave me a donation to help out with the show and stuff. I mean, that really helped me out. I mean, I'm not doing this to get paid. It's not a job or anything. I don't have any gatekeepers, or I'm not working for a big company or anything like that. I'm doing this alone. With the Truth Broadcast Network sending this information out on their website and their affiliates' websites. But other than that, donations do help broadcasters out. So I want to say kudos to everybody out there that does donate to broadcasters and people that are doing this kind of thing. Even independent researchers, authors, people that are making films. There's a whole bunch of people out there in the truth movement that are trying to get this information out by whatever means possible, and they're doing it most of the time without any money. They're doing it from the heart, and that's what it takes. And I also want to thank everybody out there who has watched the fluoride documentary that I just completed and posted. It's got a lot of information about fluoridation, water fluoridation, and it seems to have has generated some positive feedback so far, and it's only been up for a week. So I want to thank everybody who's shared that on their pages and got that information out there. That documentary definitely had to get it out there. So thanks everybody for watching and of course tuning into this show week in every Saturday. I know there's a lot of people out there that are veteran listeners to Unveiling the Truth. They've been there since the start, like I See Freedom, and there's definitely a few users on the chat room that are always in there every week. Thank you guys. Without you listeners, it would be like we're talking to dead air. But thankfully, we record these broadcasts and post them on the internet and get them out. We duplicate them, send the information out, get it online so that it can be duplicated or it could spread out. So good thing that these broadcasts aren't lost in the wind, because there's a lot of good information that's been portrayed in these broadcasts for sure. But I also wanted to mention there's a couple other things that I've been planning on doing as well. A couple documentaries, but I've been really working hard on the March of Freedom. For those of you out there who don't know what the March of Freedom is, this past summer in 2013, I left my home. I've got a family and 2 kids, but I left everything behind to go and spread awareness and learn from people to find out what the problems are in the world that we're facing. And that experience was, words can't describe what I learned on that journey, and just, it was insane. But I've been working on episodes, because it's going to be a reality show, and the first episode is starting to take form and almost ready to post. So another couple weeks and I should be posting the first episode of the March of Freedom. That took me a while to get going, because I had to, gather information, piece it all together, and learn some new video editing techniques, because I was always using older programs before. It really didn't... It was doing the job, but now I've tried to increase everything, bring up the pace, production levels, all that stuff. So I've been learning new techniques and stuff, and I really wanted to show those in the March of Freedom episodes. So just to let you guys know that the first episode is coming soon. It is taking form. It's about halfway done right now, but I'm on a constant roll now. So that means that future episodes won't be as long of a wait, that's for sure. They'll be coming out more frequently until all of the episodes are released. So the March of Freedom, expect that, guys. It's being worked on. It's a lot of work to do video editing and also to do the actual March of Freedom and videotape everything. And then do the broadcasts and have the family and stuff like that, and try to make ends meet at home and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure everybody out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. Juggling the responsibilities and still trying to get the truth out there and doing what we can. So I am doing it, keeping it up, and that's what counts, right? I'll never stop doing this. That's one thing I promised myself, and I promised for this world anyways, and everybody that I know and I speak to, that I'm not going to give up on this. I'm going to keep going no matter what is put in my way. I get death threat emails sometimes. I mean, it's crazy, some of the emails I get and comments, but I mean, it's not going to scare me off, you know what I mean? I do this for a reason, and it's for the right reasons, and that's why I started the show and joined the Truth Broadcast Network to get this information out there. I also wanted to let you guys know that I plan on having Corey Washington from The Average Liberator. He's got another show on the Truth Broadcast Network. It's a really great show. He's really involved and aware of American politics and the way that, like, legalities and current news and stuff like that. He's really on the ball with that stuff. So I really look forward to discussing things with him and having him on the show. And he likewise wants me on the show. Another thing too, I'll be on the Enemy Within radio show tomorrow night, Sunday. My time, I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern time, and it's 7 p.m. for everybody in the United Kingdom. So if you guys want to tune into the Enemy Within radio tomorrow, I'll be there with Tom Barnes and Tommy Blackhat, who some of you listeners might recognize. I had them on the show, and they were definitely interesting guests with the UK perspective, the European perspective on everything. Keep in mind, folks, that this corruption isn't just in one country. It's not just in the United States. It's not just in my country where I live in Canada. It's global. These scumbags that exist in the world that are orchestrating this chaos are globalists. They're not stuck on one country. They're thinking globally, and that's why it's affecting so many people, and there is so much stuff happening around the world. So when we discuss these things, when we post videos about these things, share, broadcast, do whatever we do, it does help. There is people all over the world that listen, and even if you just make a post on your Facebook, it's there forever. Those people can go back in your timeline, check that out. Oh, there's a good video, then they share it. I mean, I've seen videos get tons of plays months after they've been posted, which is good. But unfortunately, some of my videos get nailed off the internet. Some countries are blocked even from seeing some of my videos. I know the James Holmes conspiracy is blocked in many countries. So unfortunately, they have their policies, the gatekeepers, and we all got to keep up with that, I guess, and learn new tactics to get through those gatekeepers and infiltrate. And that's where intelligence comes in. One thing Tommy Blackhat mentioned to me, which is really fundamental in my opinion, is intelligence isn't just, like a lot of people, when they hear the word intelligence, they think of like CIA, FBI, CSIS, Mossad, gathering intelligence for national security for the nations that they belong to. But I mean, intelligence essentially is just gathering information. That's all it is. And these government organizations, FBI, CSIS, all these groups, that's what they're doing. But they do a lot worse than just that. As I'm sure Fritz will mention when he comes on board the show here later on. But what I'm trying to say is, Tommy Blackhat mentioned that intelligence is just gathering of information, and essentially that's what us broadcasters do. We listen to the news. We talk to people. I mean, I have a lot of people messaging me or contacting me with personal stories that are crazy sometimes. People would be like, that's crazy, like that doesn't make sense. But sure enough, the information's there. And that's awesome when people come forward and talk to you about what they know, because then you're working together, fitting pieces of the puzzle together and figuring things out, digging down that rabbit hole to get to the bottom, to get to that treasure trove at the bottom, which is the truth. And that's what we're doing. So that's awesome. You know what I mean? It's awesome when we work together, because nobody can do this alone. And that's one important thing to point out is nobody can do this alone. We all do our own things, yes, in our own ways. Yes, that's creativity, that's individuality, which is really needed, and expressionism. It's very important, but it's also important to work together with the skill sets that we have, so that we can make a difference. That's really important too. If you have skills, if you're gifted in something, you know what I mean, do it. Master your craft and just totally get that out there, because that's what's important. Without that, you're just going to be sitting there occupied, because that's what a job is. That's what anything is that's going to distract you from thinking about what's going on and taking power of your own life. It's called occupation. Why do you think it was called Occupy? I mean, there's definitely connections from Occupy to intelligence services. There's articles out there saying the RCMP was infiltrating Occupy, and there's all sorts of crazy things going on. And one interesting thing I wanted to point out yesterday as well is pretty much every Occupy that was happening was monitored by either local police or intelligence services. Even in my city here, Sudbury, my friend Mark came by yesterday, and we were talking for a good couple hours about things, and he mentioned a local police officer here in Sudbury stopped, and he was in a car in uniform, like in a squad car, and he stopped, and he said, "Does this have anything to do with 9/11?" And Mark was just like, "Well, sort of, I guess," and the cop was like, he's like, "Well, we're on your side, like we're with you on that." And then he drove off. And what's interesting to point out is, like, I'm pretty sure it must have been the same day, or if not the day after. But I was standing on a corner with a sign, and I had a Guy Fawkes mask on, and I heard a car horn honk behind me in the parking lot, and I turned around, and there's a black car there. And I walked over to it because the guy was waving me over, and I go over, and what do you know? It's a police officer in the car, and he showed me his badge, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a police officer." And then he showed me this 9/11 was an inside job InfoWars sticker, and the sticker looked wrinkled, looked pretty crumpled up, like he might have got angry at it, or somebody might have just crumpled it up and then later just unwrapped it, because it definitely had creases and wrinkles. Maybe it was just sitting around for a while and got bumped around, I don't know, but it definitely had a lot of creases in it. That's just an observation I made. But he said, yeah, 9/11 was an inside job. We know, we were on your side. You know what I mean? It seemed like these police, one in a squad car, one in a not in a squad car, just a regular civilian vehicle, probing the protesters. So you're gonna have that wherever you're protesting and stuff like that. There's gonna be people probing and trying to get information from groups and stuff like that. I mean, the World Public Union is one group that I started. I made a website for and all that, but it's so hard to keep up to date because it's all HTML, and each union has its own pages and Facebook groups, forum groups, and for me to do all that by myself and do all the administration work, I can't do it alone. I really can't, and that's why it's so slow. And I know people get upset with me sometimes at the World Public Union that it's lagging behind, but I'm telling you, it's a feat and a half to keep that site going, and a lot of people have the wrong idea about that group. That group is run by you. Yeah, you, not just me. Like, I'm the guy who can make the website, update it, and stuff like that. But if you have website skills, you want to help out, just tell me, and you can have the power to do so. And then it will become more self-sufficient. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if there's anybody out there who wants to help with the website to keep it more up to date, get in touch with me, because that'd be very helpful. There's people all around the world that email me all the time saying, I want to get involved in my local community, and I can't start them because it takes so much time, and I'm just one person. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm trying to say we can't do this alone, but we also have to be aware about infiltrators, because on Facebook and a lot of groups that I've started, World Public Union pages they get hacked and shut down. I set administrators up on pages, and their Facebook accounts start having crazy anomalies. They get blocked out of Facebook for days on an end. All sorts of warnings and all sorts of things happening on there. So that led me to believe that they were watching the World Public Union page. They had to have been, because I mean, I would set administrators. I got blocked out of pages, and it was only when I used the World Public Union pages. So that's a way they're trying to scare people away from getting involved as well. I mean, there's a lot of things there, but the World Public Union essentially is run by the individual. I mean, if you got to do something, do it, and you want to say you're a World Public Union member, cool. The whole idea is for each local to be self-sustainable, because I can't tell what somebody would need in Hawaii, and for me to work in Hawaii or Mexico or Greece or wherever there's local unions set up around the world, or people interested that are contacting me, it almost decreases how much I could do. So that's why the whole idea behind it is it becomes self-sustainable. And then you have a local group in your community that can get fluoride out of the water if that's your problem. If you want to go to your grocery stores and talk to your grocers and say, look, you're poisoning us with this GMO food that you're selling, and all these chemicals in the food and stuff like that. I mean, there's all these issues that need to be addressed in every community, but these issues are different in all different communities, which is why it's important that there's somebody on the ground doing their own thing, keeping it going. And the World Public Union is all for the right reasons. The right reasons is the truth. Getting the truth out there. We don't want to be poisoned. We don't want, somebody deciding for us. There's all sorts of things that it could be. It's all what the group wants. I mean, that's what it is. And I think people are just not organized enough to form in groups. You know what I mean? And do things like that. It is very hard to get organized like that. But once it happens, it happens, and the idea behind the World Public Union as well is to have not weekly, but bi-weekly or monthly meetings in a certain location, so that people in the community can get together and share their ideas and come up with campaigns and activities to address the issues in their community and to change these things. Because think about this, there's 190 locals right now of the World Public Union. Now, if that increases and it keeps growing and growing and it grows on its own without me having to start the groups, then there's no stopping that. You know what I mean? You cannot stop that. It would be an avalanche coming down on the New World Order, smothering it. There'd be so much light shining in the darkness, they would have nowhere to hide. That's exactly what would happen. If there was all these people all around the world knowing what's going on, armed with the truth, and not taking it anymore. And that's really the point where we're at right now. We're not taking it anymore. People are upset all around the world. They're learning the truth. They're getting the info out there, and they're learning that to make changes, it almost needs to be done on a local level. Because if you don't do it on a local level, it's a lot harder to do it on a global level. There's a lot of fluoridation. Let's just say, I'm going to use that as an example. Fluoride is not administered into the drinking water supply in all of the world. It's only in certain places. And why is that? Because there's people in those communities who advocated against it, and they defeated the globalists in their area to get it removed. The eugenists, all the people that are plotting, and they know the secrets about it all, but they still put it in there because they know. Those are the people that need to be ousted, really. And if you look at Iceland, what happened there, the Iceland Revolution was awesome, in my opinion. We should really take note of what happened there. And, bankers can't, it's disgusting when a company, which isn't even a real thing, has more rights than a human being. It's disgusting. So that's what happens. We got to learn, we got to wake up, we got to work together, and we got to get the information out there, because this stuff is real, whether you like it or not. I know it's scary. A lot of people are scared of this stuff and they don't want to talk about it, but it must be talked about. We need to identify the problem to find the answer or the solution to the problem, because the problem is the chaos. The problem is the problem. It's what's bothering us. It's our burden. It's the weight on our shoulders. We got to get that off. We got to get rid of it, so that we don't have to deal with it anymore. And once you eliminate something like that, it's not going to come back. That's the key thing right there. Once you identify the problem and you eliminate it, it becomes something in the past that's written in a history book saying, oh, okay, well, it's no longer there. And a lot of times people will even laugh at stuff like that. They'll even say, oh, like as if we did that. There's a lot of examples out there. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we do learn from our mistakes, right? That's the idea, because if we don't, we're insane. Keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, but it never happens. It's chasing your tail. That's insanity. And that's natural insanity. There's self-induced insanity. There's also another type of insanity, I guess, which is brought on by chemical intake, consumption intake, makes you not think straight, and I mean self-destruct mode. So you don't want that happening, that's for sure. So be careful. You are what you eat, as they say. So watch what you eat, watch what you drink, and let's get a move on. Let's get this out of there. I know in my community, and here's another problem with fluoride too, and I should have mentioned this in my documentary, but it's not a public vote. The city councilors or the people in the community that are in the government, the representatives essentially are the ones who vote on it, whether it's in there or not. So it's up to the public to convince them or to show them evidence that it's not good for them to vote it out. It's not a public vote. I mean, that's absurd. That doesn't make sense. That's a protective agent there, I guess, that's protecting the whole system, and that's why a lot of people are having a problem getting it out of their local communities, because they can't convince their councillors otherwise, because they're being, they're receiving profits from that, or they know the negative effects of it and they're purposely doing it because they're criminals. So I don't know. That's what I think's going on for real. But I don't know what's going on with Fritz here. He hasn't sent me a message just yet. I talked to him a few days ago anyways about it. Well, not a few days ago. It was definitely, I guess it was about a week ago or so, just to, catch up with him and plan everything, confirm it all. And once it was confirmed, it was good. And we did talk a bit briefly after that. But today I haven't heard from him, so I hope everything's all right. We're already a half hour into the broadcast, and I haven't heard from him yet. I mean, I'm gonna keep on going here, and hopefully he sends me a message there, because I really like to talk to him. But I mean, I hope everything's all right. I mean, I don't think it's like Fritz to not show up on a broadcast or do an interview, but hey, maybe something came up. Who knows? We'll see. But I'll keep you guys posted about that. As soon as he comes through, I'll definitely put him on for you guys. I had some great questions for him. Definitely. I mean, Fritz Springmeier, he's for some of you out there who aren't aware of him, there's some plot to set him up, to throw him in jail and stuff. He did serve time in prison. When he was released, from what I read, and I want to find out from firsthand from him, he was forbidden to speak about what he was doing, and he was well known for the seminars and his books and all that stuff, his research into the bloodlines of the Illuminatis, the ancient families. And I mean, I wish he was on here to explain all this right now, but I'm sure he'll be on soon. But he did a lot of genealogy tracking and discovered some of the bloodlines that were prominent, that held positions throughout history. I mean, the Russell family, the Lee family, the Van Dunn family, Rockefeller, Bundy, Astor, Onassis. I know there's a couple more. Disney was, I think, one of the lesser families on there. So he definitely identified a lot of the families that have held power throughout history. And it's definitely compelling research that he did and compiled into his book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. And he spoke about it in seminars. For anybody out there who hasn't seen them, I would definitely reference going to watch a couple of his seminars from before. He did one, I believe, at the Prophecy Club, which was really good. And there's another one too on undetectable mind control. Very, very in-depth seminar and presentation. He was essentially in one broadcast or in one seminar, he was explaining how the intelligence agencies and essentially, the system itself is brainwashing people, mind control, and it's undetectable mind control. Essentially, you don't know that it's actually there to program you, but it does. And the scary thing about this is the farther you dig to find the answers for this stuff, you soon realize that pretty much everything is a form of undetectable mind control or conditioning meant to make you think a certain way or feel a certain way or buy a certain product. I mean, it's definitely in depth, and it's been practiced and it's been adapted throughout the ages so that they always maintain power and control. That's one thing you'll notice. You'll notice that there's a lot of people that do not absolutely know what's going on. I mean, they absolutely don't, and it's very hard for people to get through to them. You know what I mean? And you explain it to them like this is how you're being affected psychologically by this. This is how you're being psychologically affected by that, and they just don't piece it together. But thankfully, there's a lot of people out there that see it plain as day, and that's the thing. Once you realize it and you pick up on this, you can't avoid it. It's there all the time. You see it everywhere. You see the conditioning. You see the intentions behind all sorts of things. I mean, it's there. And one thing that Fritz did was he used sources from the military, intelligence, all sorts of things, and also members of the Illuminati, the Bloodlines, the Blue Bloods, and all that stuff. They've held power for so long, and he also goes into detail about other things like religious things, health. He's he's got a lot of discussions and topics that he knows about, which is awesome. It's good to be well rounded with information and know know at least a little bit about a lot of things, just so you can piece it together. It's also good to really know a lot about certain things too, to be an expert, so to speak, about certain topics and subjects as well, because then you become the kind of go-to person for that kind of information. And Fritz definitely did some profound research back in the day to piece together these families and do some tracking back and tracing their roots and stuff like that, which you'll see it. I mean, in one of my films, Eye of the Illuminati, you'll see the family crests. The family crests have been adapted throughout the ages. Some of them changed when one family interbred with another. The flag would change, the crest would change. And you see this on all sorts of coats of arms and stuff like that. And of course, there's also a very deep occult root to all of this. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's one thing that Fritz really points out, as well as the occult connections between all of this. Many of you might be familiar with the pyramid that Fritz displays, he shows, and it's got the hierarchy of the pyramid and the different levels of essentially Freemasons, the Knights Templar, the witches. It's got the females and the males, because there is female occultists out there that are deeply, deeply rooted into this stuff, and they're called like witches and stuff like that. So he definitely pointed that out very much. I mean, anybody out there who would see it would recognize that pyramid structure, and that was Fritz that was showing that. So definitely awesome. Check out some of his stuff for sure. And I see here some people in the chat room there. Everything is a pyramid, and definitely right. Everything is a pyramid in power. You barely know who's orchestrating things, who's the string puller, but it can be found. You just got to dig and dig and dig and dig, and you will eventually find the truth, and it will come out, definitely. That's that's what we do, right? We dig for the truth, and we try to get that information out there as much as possible, so that people can disseminate that themselves and get the info out. It's like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I definitely see a massive increase of people waking up. I mean, more and more all the time. Different things come out, and then they get woken up by this or that. There's different events that are happening all over the place, and people are waking up. And whether this is intentional or not, that's I know it's intentional. However, uh, it's the reactions of the people that are really going to make a difference in the end. And as you can see, people are still slaves. So there obviously hasn't been much progress in the fight for freedom. In some cases, yes. In others, no. I mean, that's the thing. Uh, the main thing is if you're doing the right thing, you're getting the information out there, doing what you can, telling other people, talking about this with your family. If your family doesn't want to talk about it, your mom, your brother, your sister, your grandparents get mad at you, stand your ground. You know what I mean? For you to not care and not discuss these important fundamental issues, I mean, it's silence is complicitness. So really, we have to speak up no matter what. And when people look down at us, it will be them in the corner with the dunce cap once the truth is revealed and it becomes common knowledge. I mean, it's almost there. It's reaching critical mass now, and it's because of the work from all of the people out there definitely spreading awareness and doing whatever they can and not giving up. We're not going to take it. We're not giving up, and that's what it's going to take. And it really is making an impact. I assure you guys it is. You can see it all around the world. And the gatekeepers, the media, the government that are involved in this, the corporations, the companies, the banks, the globalists, all these scumbags that are involved in this are working double time because of the work that we're doing to get this stuff out there and to address the real issues and expose the truth for what it is. And these people are working double time. They hate us. I know it. They have to update their software and their websites to put a gate down and to block us from doing certain things. And then you've got people, figuring out ways to go past it. It's evolution in the fight for freedom, and that's really an important thing to have in this fight is evolution. We have to learn new tactics, and that's intelligence. That's exactly what it is. It's like we're forming our own intelligence group to thwart the New World Order, to ensure that it's not going to happen. And there is people out there. There's even people out there getting in government positions, that are, or they're working at it to get into government positions so that they can change the system. Now, whether they'll have an influence for the greater good in the end is another question. However, it's good to see that people are doing that. From what I've seen in the past, a lot of these people, I've heard stories of people losing their careers for speaking out against stuff, which is a lot of the time why they don't. Money, I guess, silences them. They're happy with making money and going home to their family and paying the bills and knowing that they're poisoning us and they're passing laws that are going to harm a lot of people, or they're sending troops over for a war that the troops don't even know why they're there fighting. They're just getting paid to do it. I mean, it's a big rat's nest that's going on, and I'm glad to see that there's actually people getting in there to do stuff. And speaking of this, I think it was Jesse Ventura. I just watched it. He's got a new show or something on the internet, which is interesting. I only seen a preview of it. I do look forward to seeing actual episodes of it or something like that. But I know I listened to an interview once where he was saying he was going to try to run for president and stuff like that. So, you've got people that are aware of what's going on that are trying to work their way into the system. I mean, Jesse was he's an ex-governor, so he's had experience in there. But you don't really hear about too many people that are, gung-ho truthers that are trying to get this information out there. But there is. I know there is. Rand Paul, there's a good example of people that are, speaking the truth in a lot of instances and trying to get the word out there from what I've seen. And that's in American politics. In Canada here, a lot of people would say the NDP are good, but really any political party is, I don't know, I don't agree with it, because any political party requires control over the population, and corporations must exist for that to happen. Banks, all that stuff, all the bad things would need to operate the same way they're operating now for that to continue. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but I got this in the mail. I want to show you guys. This is a letter from the NDP, and it's in regards to the postal prices here in Canada. They're raising the prices for mail here, and it says, "Don't stamp out our mail. Send Stephen Harper a message." Right on there, send Stephen Harper a message. And then it's got our member of parliament on the back to contact him. He's NDP. But I want to say something, and that is, you could try to send Harper a message, but he's not going to get back to you. That's what these people do. They do not reply to your mail. You can mail them, 10 letters. They will not reply to your email. I mean, the NDP can say send Stephen Harper a message all they want, but even these guys know that they're not going to reply. They don't care. I mean, there's going to be petitions going out against this and all that stuff, which is good, but at the same time, you can't send Stephen Harper a message. I went right to his front door to give him a message, and the RCMP at the door said that nobody's allowed back there. Nobody goes there to talk to him, nothing like that. I mean, unless you know him personally and you're buddy with Stephen Harper, then you could probably get onto his property and talk to him, or you could probably drop a letter in his mailbox for him to read or something, but I couldn't even deliver a letter in his mailbox. I mean, so you could try to send Stephen Harper a message, but you can't even deliver mail in his mailbox without having an RCMP saying, go away. You can't drop this off. You have to go to another office and give it to them, which is a gatekeeper. They filter the mail before it gets to him, and obviously there's going to be intelligence workers in there with getting some of the mail and stuff. So I don't know where my letter went. I mailed it out definitely a few months ago now to Stephen Harper, and it addressed many, many, many problems. And I haven't heard back. No letter, not even like, what do you call those letters where they just pump it out and then sign their name or whatever, prefabricated letters. I didn't even get nothing like that. Not a response, which is not really that surprising. And I was talking to my postal worker, actually, the lady who delivers my mail to my house, and I told her this. I told her I went right to Stephen Harper's house and I mailed him a letter about, the increased cost of living and how people can't handle that. It's a breaking point that's happening, and they're purposely doing it to collapse things. And she was like, well, yeah, I know, I've been telling everybody to send messages and to get involved with this with this postal stuff, but, they're not listening. And I told her, yeah, well, that's what they do the best, you know what I mean? What they do best is ignore the people. So I don't really think that it's going to matter who's in charge of a government system, NDP, liberal, conservative. It doesn't matter who's in charge. They're not going to listen to the majority of the people. I mean, when they have an agenda and they have their mindset on something, they're going to do it no matter what. That's one thing. I mean, if majority rules and there's 90% of people saying, okay, fluoride, get it out of the water in Canada, let's just say, we would have it out of the water. But it doesn't work that way, because we still have it in the water in 38%, or is it 32% now in Canada? But it's in the 30% now that are still fluoridated. I mean, that should be entirely removed from the water supply, as well as the United States. So, I mean, and United Kingdom. I mean, Ireland, mandatory to they have mandatory fluoridation there, and that's wrong too. There's other countries too. I mean, that shouldn't even be taking place. Same with the food. We should be able to trust the people that we go to buy our food from without poisoning us or sterilizing us. Putting BPA in the can liners. for canned goods, having the plastic, the toxins and the chemicals from the plastics leaching into our drinks, whether it be a heating, when the liquid is hot inside, it leaches out the chemicals from the plastic. There's all sorts of things that are happening right now all around the world, and they shouldn't be happening. And that's clear indication that there's something going on it's an agenda that there's people following. Certain people are following, and it can't just be like one or two people that are following this agenda. It is literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people, millions, I would even say, millions of people following this agenda. And if I think personally that the Freemasons have a lot to do with this, because they have millions of members all over the world, and I mean, they're a secret, and the people that are involved with the Masons are definitely the higher ups in all of the communities. That's why you have a Masonic lodge in even if a small little town, but you go there, it's going to be all the high class people in that community that are the Masons. So I definitely think that they're involved, as well as other factions. Obviously, the Bilderberg, CFR, and as well as the bloodlines and the families that Fritz Springmeier mentioned. When I was researching into Fritz's work and looking into the connections he was making in the bloodlines he exposed, I did also some more research into them and found a lot of connections, actually, that were quite interesting. And a lot of these people were involved with the opium trade back in the day, as well as teas, imports. Like Onassis was in charge of the freights that were transporting goods and stuff like that, so he had a lockdown on that industry. These people have lockdowns on the industries, and it's passed on hereditary. I mean, just like the Masons, they have hereditary power passed on through generations, etc. So it's, when you start seeing all these similarities, you start piecing it together, and even Fritz Springmeier has done some amazing work on exposing Freemasons. So definitely some interesting stuff there for sure. But I got to say some stuff too. I got to see if Fritz is on. Oh, he still hasn't sent a message. I sure hope he's all right, because I don't think it's like him to not come on to a show to do an interview. It's definitely strange. And I hope I haven't been boring you guys too much. I mean, I was expecting Fritz to come on here, and really I'm just pulling stuff out of a hat for you guys right now. I'm being honest. I'm just pulling stuff out of a hat and trying to talk and, kill the time to make it go by, and try to talk about as interesting subject material as possible for you guys, as well as a different variety of subjects, but important, relevant subjects as well. And I don't know, just trying to, pass the time until he comes on. So I do apologize, everyone out there that were expecting to see Fritz on, but it's, I told him about quarter after I would be bringing him on board, and still haven't heard from him yet. So we'll see if he comes on. And thanks, guys. There's people on there on the chat room saying no need to apologize, just keep talking. I'll keep talking. Don't worry. I'll do my best. Anyways. And I'm going to play a video of Fritz, though. I'm going to go on YouTube and show a couple of his good videos, just so people that were expecting to see him on here can see something by him. But hopefully he comes on. We're already almost an hour into the broadcast, so I don't know. I've never had a guest not show up, which is why I'm, hoping that he's all right. Hoping that everything's good. But in any event, I want to say, again, thanks to all you viewers out there that are sticking with me on this broadcast and keep checking out the shows. It's awesome. And thank you guys for sharing the links as well, and spreading the information and telling your friends to check out the show, as well as the Truth Broadcast Network. I mean, I'm sure all the broadcasters on TBN definitely appreciate it, and I know I do for sure. Let's see here. There's some things I was researching about that are just, I mean, when you start learning about history, alternative history is what they call it, and that's where it goes against the history books. But when you start learning about alternative history, you start seeing that there's a lot more truth and evidence in the alternative story than the real story. And when you start seeing cover-ups and documents destroyed, concealed, and when you even have top secret and classified documents in the first place, and then you have people dying, people getting killed, silenced for what they know, all that kind of stuff, you start seeing the bigger picture. You start saying there's no way that that's chance, you know. But the thing is, these people have been getting away with it because the legal system pretty much protects them. You know, you have to have certain amount of evidence to prove this, and witnesses just aren't credible sources of information anymore. You could have, like, look at James Holmes, the Aurora shooting theater. So many witnesses claim to have seen another person in there, and pretty much all the witnesses, well, every witness actually, from what I've seen, 100% of the witnesses from the videos said that they seen a guy in a black jacket with a gas mask come in shooting, and nobody saw his face. Nobody could prove that it was him. Yet he's being tried for it. He's going through the legal system right now. He's ensnared within it. He's their victim now, and that's what's going on. And I've been reading Crossfire by Jim Marrs, and it's an older book, which is actually what inspired JFK the movie, Oliver Stone's JFK, and I highly recommend that book to anybody out there. It's called Crossfire by Jim Marrs, and he just released a revised and updated version of that book, and it's huge. It's like the Bible of JFK conspiracy books, I assure you. I'm just gonna get this book for a moment, so you'll have to give me a moment. Gotta plug into my transhuman connection. There we go. But yeah, this book here, look at how thick this book is. It's huge. This book here is the Bible of JFK conspiracy books, and there was a lot I knew about the JFK assassination, but this book here showed me a lot more and a lot of in-depth evidence. And I'm telling you right now, this book here is, it just shows you exactly how they operate. The intelligence agencies, the media, how they all work together to cover stuff up. Now, who's all involved in these agencies? Most of them were Masons. I mean, so you got to make the connection at some point. You know what I mean? That, okay, well, it can't just always be Masons that are involved in this stuff, that are responsible for all this stuff. But, whoa, you know, look at that. They're members of this secret society, or they're members of that secret society. Oh, yeah, they're part of that family, or they're part of this bloodline. I mean, it all starts adding up when you do the research. And this book here shows a lot of evidence on how government agencies can cover up evidence, not tell you, lie about things, blatantly lie. I mean, they go to court, lie on the stand because they understand the legal system. They don't care, so they lie. I mean, they also are essentially worshipping dark energies. They're into pagan stuff. A lot of these people are definitely into the older pagan religions. I mean, you see their rituals and all that stuff. They're all pagan-based, older stuff like that. And that's why they can lie on the stand and not care, put their hand on the Bible and take an oath as president, and then, you know, kill a million people in a war a few months later. You've got all this stuff happening, and they're doing it because they don't care. They have no conscience. They are demons. They are the demons of our world. And the good thing about this is there's angels in our world too. So there's people out there that are actually fighting this, that are equal to these people's darkness. It's just these people have a way of silencing people that are going to do a good job, or that are that have credible information that could provide evidence to prove a conspiracy or to prove what they're trying to say. The list of examples for people that have been killed in this way is so huge. It's a massive list. Massive. This book here has tons of evidence in it of people being killed for that exact reason, to silence them. Aaron Swartz is another example. I mean, people say that he killed himself and he committed suicide. I don't believe that for a minute. I think he was silenced. I strongly, firmly believe that. They always plant evidence, these people, saying that this person wrote a letter or did this before and did this before. But, I mean, once you dig and dig and dig, you can't find a lot of evidence in a lot of these claims. Yet, when there's an agenda behind something, it gets passed through the legal system and accepted. It's insane. You know what I mean? It's a miraculous that I could actually do that. So, I don't know. All I know is that there's people out there that are aware of this, aware of what's going on, and they're silent about it. So they're complicit because they're silent. They're part of the problem. You're getting whistleblowers coming out from all over the place, from all walks of life. It's starting to come out. That's what we need. We need these insiders to come forward and say, enough is enough. This is the truth. Look it up yourself. We have the facts. Go look it up yourself and come to your own conclusion, which is awesome. When you have, I'm trying to think of a perfect example besides Edward Snowden. Well, I've talked to doctors. I've talked to former members of government. Even look at Peter Van Colart in the fluoride documentary I just put out last week. He still is. He's the director for the Environmental Training Institute, and he's coming forward and saying the truth about hydrofluorosilicic acid being put into the drinking water and the health effects. He's doing a noble deed by doing that, and the evidence that they don't want you to know about this is these people eventually end up losing their jobs, losing their lives, having a rough go. I mean, they get purposefully and vindictively attacked for blowing the whistle, giving us credible information, and changing the world, because that's what they do. So anybody listening to this broadcast, or anybody out there involved in any of this stuff, it's time to come forward. You know what I mean? There comes a time where you can't be scared, and you have to say, what's worth it, the future or my life right now? Because our lives are very short, significantly short compared to the life of the universe, the life of the planet, the future generations, our grandchildren, their grandchildren. That's what matters, not us. I mean, sure, what we do now matters, but when you're working a job, a corporate job, let's just say at a chemical company, or you're working at a bank, let's just say, ripping people off, whatever it is, if you're a doctor and you know that you're just pumping out pills to get that paycheck from Big Pharma, or you're a dentist, knowing fluoride when ingested is harmful, you're suggesting to take fluoride pills, or to take fluoride rinse and drink fluoridated water and stuff like that. I mean, it's these people that need to. That's what needs to be changed, really. But that's what's going on right now. Is our world is evolving to that state. People that are trained or that are on the inside are coming forth and revealing what's going on in the industry, and we're starting to learn. The average human is, I would like to think, becoming a little bit more smarter as time goes along. They're not, once you get tricked, you're like, the joke's on me, and then you usually learn your lesson, right? Well, there's some people out there that don't, but fortunately, the human instinct, you would learn from that. So that's what's happening. When you get duped and you get tricked, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I learned my lesson. And that's the key fundamental thing. You learned your lesson. So you're not going to allow for yourself to be taken control of and manipulated again after that point. That's the hope, anyways. The hope is to learn your lesson and to not be duped again. But the problem is, when you have, legalized drone strikes, Obamacare is another one for the United States. Wow, that is a fiasco. I mean, just watch some of Harry Link's broadcasts on Obamacare and your head will spin around. That's insane. I'm glad I live in Canada and we don't have that problem. We have our own problems, mind you, but there's all these issues, you know what I mean, that are going on in the world, and they still exist. We haven't been able to eliminate them. Public power hasn't seemed to be the solution to that. Why? Because public has no power. That's the problem. Public needs to have the power. And that's why I started the World Public Union, was essentially to counter the government and the New World Order, as well as all the companies, corporations out there, all this stuff that just creates inequality and divisions amongst human beings, and the reason for suffering around the world, essentially. So the World Public Union was a way to counter that, essentially. So anybody out there who wants to get involved, let me know. I mean, definitely need to figure out about the website and keeping it up to date. But if you are interested in helping me, or somebody who's an activist and very aware of what's going on and really wants to help out and has some extra time to help out, maybe like a couple hours a week or any time really, let me know. I mean, it would be definitely awesome to have a nice team of people working for in the social networking aspect, because I guarantee you, if that builds up to where it should be, it'll just take off on its own, because it hasn't reached that point yet. It's almost there. It's right at the cusp, I would say. The World Public Union, it's right at the cusp. And once we break through and there's enough support and all these locals are working on their own without the need of the main group, which is essentially the idea, is to start individual groups, there's no stopping that. Whether somebody wants to start in their local community a political party to counter what's going on, whatever it's going to take, you know what I mean? The idea is there, and it's up to you to grow upon it, really. I mean, that's the way it was designed to be, really, to be self-sustainable, each local. And that is a solution to the problems, to all problems, actually. So that's a key right there. That's a solution to all problems, whether it be fluoridating the water, local problems like high tax rates or high property taxes, all sorts of things, GMOs in the food. If you had a good government locally, or just a group of people, not running things, but, a group of people, exactly what it is, like a union, really, making sure that people are being treated right in the community, then there you go. Problem solved. As long as these people weren't silenced or pushed off to the back and not listened to, then it would work. But that's what's happening. The media won't talk to people. They're not going to talk to you if you're saying, let's get fluoride out of the water. Very rarely they will, unless there's like an event happening or something like that. Then they might talk to you, but they're not going to print like a giant big page article saying how fluoride is bad and get it out of the water and all the evidence. I mean, they don't do that. They usually have doctors and dentists come on and say, oh yeah, it's safe, it's healthy. I mean, I'm using fluoride as an example a lot tonight, but you could use these examples in a lot of circumstances and instances. It's not just food and consumption issues. It's also monetary issues, political issues. There's all sorts. There's tons. And that was another reason why the World Public Union was formed too, was to address as many issues as possible, not just one. You have the 9/11 truth groups, or you have Monsanto groups, anti-Monsanto groups. You have fluoridation groups. You have all these groups that are specific to one topic. The World Public Union essentially is meant to merge and to provide support for these groups, as long as it's for the better cause of people. And we all know what the better cause is, to do no harm. There's all sorts of things that are just common sense, and that's where it lies. You know what I mean? It's common sense, but there's a lot of things out there that just don't make sense, and they're law, or they're practiced in communities, and they need to be abolished. They need to be eliminated, and it is up to the people. Unfortunately, it's very hard to break through and get through to that other side. So I don't know. It is up to us, people. And I'm trying my best by doing broadcasts, and I made all these websites and started the World Public Union. I make documentaries, but I also have 2 kids to raise and stuff. And when I did the March of Freedom, it was a very selfless act. It was very hard to leave my kids behind and travel across Eastern Canada and go to all these communities and talk to people and get videos and all that stuff, and document everything for the reality show. And it was very hard to leave my kids behind and my family. That was very, very hard to do. But I did it for sure. And I don't know. I learned a lot, and I came back here, and I'm trying to implement that. But one thing I did learn along the way is, especially from the smaller communities, is that you can make a difference on a local level, as long as the majority is there and there's a group of people working against it. And the problem now is there is a majority of people that are aware of this stuff, but it doesn't seem like it because of the undetectable mind control, as Fritz Springmeier puts it. That's what's going on. People can't detect it, and they don't know, so they're victim to it, and that's the problem. Once you're aware of this, though, you can bypass it. That's the main thing. Once you're aware of this, you're just, it's like walking down the street and the lights come on and you can see everything. That's how black and white it is. It really is. Once you're awake, and the farther you learn, you just see life in a different way. It's like the Matrix, you know what I mean? You can see how things operate. That's the key. You see how things operate outside of your world, and you see how you're connected to it. And that's another key thing too, is that you do have the power. We all do have the power, and it is up to us to make those changes. And I'm happy to see that a lot of people are taking part in this fight however they can, by using whatever skills they have. And a lot of people are interested in certain areas, so they focus more on those areas, but it's good that there's people in those areas that are doing that. So the World Public Union essentially was a way to merge all these groups so that we're not divided, so that there's a giant mass of people that are just awake and aware, and we're not going to let things go on anymore. So it's hard to say what's going on, but if you look at Egypt and you look at some of these revolutions, somebody just made a comment, more than a third of population have started revolutions, 35%, and I don't know where that 35% comes, but I would definitely think so. Yeah, makes about sense. Look at Egypt. Look at all those countries over there that were massive protests. Millions of people protesting against corruption and their government, ousting their government, all sorts of things like that because of unfairness and you name it. So why isn't that happening in North America yet? The reason why is because people are docile and they're scared. They're scared that something's going to happen, which is a lot of this propaganda out there is meant to make you scared so that you won't fight back against this stuff. They offer no solutions. They just talk about the problems. And that's another thing. They'll discuss problems and tell you what's going on. And they'll cry the sky is falling, but they won't tell you how to get out of the way. They're just they'll scream it, and they'll run for shelter themselves, and they'll let you get eradicated. And that's another big no-no. We got to work together and make sure that nobody's getting eradicated. That's another key thing right there, is you have to provide a solution to these problems, because all these problems do have solutions. Free energy, removing fluoride from the water, very easy. Mandating companies to not use GM food, and just giving people jobs growing food so that we can have natural food. Because I know a lot of people are looking for jobs. There's a lot of countries in the world that would love to have that as an industry, to provide the world's food. Fresh, organic, healthy food, non-GM, no chemicals, no insecticides. Very easy solution right there. Just make it mandatory policy for these companies to operate that way. Very simple. Other simples, education, other things, education. Very simple to stop producing slaves out of the school systems at a very young age. Very simple solution to that problem. I mean, just teach them the truth from a very young age, and make sure you're teaching them the fundamentals. You're never too young to learn about the important things in life, and that is survival, health, all this stuff. And I know schools do try to teach it, but if you look at the Canada Food Guide, I mean, that's Canada's thing for healthy eating and all that stuff. But if you were to actually eat all the food that the Canada Food Guide suggests that you eat, you'd be 300 pounds and broke. You'd have no money. Why? Because it's a scam. You don't need all that food. If you ate all that food, you'd have severe gastrointestinal problems, stomach problems. You'd probably have cancer because of all the GM and all the chemicals and hormones and just junk from the milk you'd be drinking. All that stuff that they're telling you to eat to stay healthy. That's ridiculous. If you actually follow that, you would make a lot of food companies rich, and you would also make the health industry rich as well. So that's another thing. Teaching education, proper education, avoiding the mind control. Definitely avoiding the mind control is very important. I don't think that we should be slaves. You know what I mean? I think that people should contribute to the society and help out with the society. Obviously, there is a need for food production. There is a need for laborers. There is a need for the workforce. There is a need for all this stuff. Technology, doctors, nurses, bus drivers, police, fire department, ambulance drivers. All this stuff are needed for society to work, of course. But, I mean, when there's people out there who aren't working because of technological unemployment, or there's just not enough job positions and this and that, people should be able to still contribute in some way. And the problem is, if you don't get money unless you're accepted. And a lot of people think you need post-secondary education for this. Well, a lot of the people that are high ups don't have post-secondary education because they know it's a scam. They didn't spend all that money. They knew somebody that got them in there. That's exactly how they do it. You pat my back, I pat yours. It's how the Masons operate. They do that. They piggyback off each other. They barter. They loan each other things without interest. All sorts of things that they do to get ahead of the rest of the people. While other people are paying massive interest rates, have to pay their full taxes, have to pay their rent, have to buy their food, have to pay their gas. All this stuff is keeping the common individual, commoner as they call them, down. While all these hereditary, people that have obtained their power through hereditary reasons or just being passed the torch, they don't have to work. They didn't have to do anything like that, and that's a big problem too. Is finding the root of the problem in order to provide it with a proper solution. So that's another important thing, is the solution must be proper to the appropriate problem that you're facing. A lot of these solutions that the industry or the government claim that they have is just a band-aid for the problem. It's not actually going to sew the wound up and allow it to heal. There's nothing being done about it. It's just, a little bit of sugar coating on top or a Band-Aid for the wound to stop the bleeding temporarily, but it's still going to leave a big scar, and potentially, and in most cases, guaranteed further problems occurring as a result of the the lack of solution that could have fixed the problem. Free energy is a huge one, though. If we had these self-sustainable energy units, which would essentially keep itself powered without even the need of the sun, just a self-sustaining energy device like Tesla technology or something similar, even more modern. We got the technology now. If everybody had one of those mandatory in their house instead of these smart meters and all that other, I don't like using bad words, so I'm not going to swear I really wanted to there, though. But I mean, because this is really something I'm passionate about, is this energy thing. These privatized energy companies are profiting huge off us. They're getting rich off us, and we're paying our bills, and we're working, and we got huge cell phone bills, and these cell phones are giving people cancer, and there's even going to be some court cases, I'm sure, coming up with cell phone use linked to health problems, and as well as fluoride consumption and GM. And well, actually the Monsanto Act was passed, so they're protected from any repercussions, unfortunately, which was done on purpose. That's another thing, kind of like what this Crossfire book explains, how they work in the government to pass laws to cover their butts so they don't get in trouble. Another way they do it is they wait for these people that are guilty of these crimes and covering stuff up and manipulating history and evidence or whatever their role was in this globalist plot. They wait till they're dead. They wait till they've grown old and died so that they can't talk about it, and then the information slowly gets released to the public and the truth comes out after their death, so they can't be held accountable for it in this life. So that's another way they do it. Definitely disgusting tactics used by the globalist New World Order. And I gotta say, it's good to see that there is people waking up to this stuff and they know that what's going on. But as I said, Fritz Springmeier still not on. Unfortunately, I do apologize, folks. I was really expecting Fritz Springmeier to come on the show today, but I'm not sure why he hasn't. Hopefully we can have him back on, because I don't think there's only 40 minutes left in the broadcast now, so I don't think he's going to be coming on. But I'm going to try to find that video of Fritz with the pyramid, because that's very important for you guys to understand the pyramid structure of how the Mason groups work. YouTube, here we go. I'm just typing Fritz Springmeier pyramid. And yeah, it's Illuminati Bloodlines from the Prophecy Club is the one I was telling you guys about. And it's really in depth, for sure. Really, really in depth. And I know it is on this video that he shows the slides. I'm going to try to get it on board here. I'll try to find it. But it's very important video, very revealing with the different levels and how they organize themselves and compartmentalize themselves so that one group doesn't know what the other is doing, and it confuses everything. And that's how another tactic they get away with this kind of stuff is by compartmentalization and obviously mass confusion and undetectable mind control techniques, definitely. But Fritz was definitely on the ball about some of these bloodlines that he had, or that he uncovered, and making connections between all of them. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, those are the more well-known ones. But I named a bunch earlier. Those were the other ones. But here we go. Which is correct.
If we look at this diagram, we'll see the basic structure of the secret Illuminati. back in 1776, they structured the Illuminati with 13 positions. But around the time of the American Civil War, they restructured it somewhat so that what they created was this first level, your anarchy level here, and then a hierarchy level, and then your special committees and councils. This is very similar to excuse me. This is very similar to what we saw on our diagram, where you had your remember on your Gnostic religions, where you had your broad mass religions and your initiate group. On the anarchy level, you'll find thousands of different witchcraft groups that each have their own rituals and their own beliefs, and they look disassociated and unorganized and unrelated. But then, if you are selected to go beyond that, you will enter the hierarchy level, and as a little girl, for instance, you would be part of Sisters of Light, and then as a teenager you'd be inducted into the Mothers of Darkness, and then you would progress to the Grandmother level. And they have many special committees and councils. For instance, your Council of 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, your Grand Druid Council, your Committee of 300, your Committee of 500. Over here, you see represented again that same three-tiered pattern that I was talking about, and this is the Satanic Brotherhood, which is organized in hubs. The Satanic Brotherhood and Illuminati are like this. They're essentially one organization, except the Illuminati is technically Gnostic dualism. They believe that your good deeds must balance your bad deeds. If you were to follow the life of somebody that was inducted through one of the Illuminati orders, like the Order of the Skull and Bones, you'll see that they are tapped as a candidate for first year or night, and a patriarch may rise to leadership within the Skull and Bones. From there, you'll see that they progress to the Council of Foreign Relations, whose equivalent is the Royal Institute of International Affairs, then to the Round Table groups, and then to the Pilgrim Society. The Pilgrim Society is far more powerful than Council of Foreign Relations, although very few people know about it and talk about it. And this is your OTO. Now this is a very important scripture to share with you. It says, "And upon her head was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth." And I'm just going to go through this as quick as I can. Babylon the Great is fallen. It's become the habitations of devils and the hold of every foul spirit. All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Then it goes on to talk about her slaves and how she sells the souls of men. And it says, "By thy sorceries were all nations deceived, and in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints and of all that were slain upon the earth." I want to draw out 2 points from this. Now, the popular Protestant interpretation of this set of scriptures is that this is referring to the Catholic Church. Ladies and gentlemen, the Catholic Church wasn't even in existence when most of the prophets, the biblical prophets, were slain. This is referring to Babylon the Great, Babylon the mystery religions, which is today the Illuminati. And I also point out to you that there it says, all that were slain upon the earth. So God is a greater conspiratorialist than I am. He's laying at the feet of this one organization, the mystery religions, all the blood of all of these innocent people down through the years. It's very interesting when you're a researcher like myself and you go in and see how all these wars were created for the powerful elite and all of their assassination squads and everything. I have a better understanding for why God said all that were slain upon the earth are the fault of this mother of harlots. So the Catholic Church is a daughter of the harlot. We're not talking about a Jewish conspiracy. We're not talking about a Catholic conspiracy. We're talking about a conspiracy that involves all the nations of the earth. And in the Scottish Rites Journal of this year, they talk about the double eagle. Now, this is a logo that comes from Babylon, and many countries around the world have adopted it. And these are a few of the countries over here that have adopted it. You've got Israel and Mexico and France and Germany and Turkey and Bolivia and Chile and Honduras and Italy, and another country that has adopted it that's not given there is Canada. And this real quickly, I'm going to go through the next a few pieces of documentation very quickly. Try to hold it here for just a few seconds so that they can zero in on it. But it's telling us, comes from the Talmud, that the Talmud comes from Babylon. And this, from the Jewish Encyclopedia, is telling us how the Pharisees learned their beliefs from Babylon. What happened is that during the captivity, the mystery religions created a branch of themselves, the Pharisees. And in this next item, which comes from the Jewish Encyclopedia, it teaches us that the Pharisees, which was a branch of the mystery religions, then took over the life of the Jewish people, and it says Phariseeism shaped the character of Judaism and the life and thought of the Jew for all the future. They're known as rabbis. And this piece of documentation is just telling us that the Talmud ranks above the Torah. What's the Torah? First few books of the Bible, and this is very similar to what's happened in the Catholic system, where the Pope's traditions have become more important than the Bible itself. And this article was written to be sent out around the world. It was the Jewish Post International Edition. And this is an article by a rabbi, and I won't read it due to time, but he says that if you were born Jewish, you are divine. And this is from another recent Jewish magazine. It's advertising amulets of protection for one's home or office. Now, back in Frankfurt, Germany, there was a family named Bauer, and they had this hexagram amulet on a red sign to protect their house, and they were named after this sign. In German, this red sign, Rothschild, was given to the family, and that's how the Rothschilds were named. When I went in and looked at what was going on, I found that surprisingly there was just as strong a Scottish contingency in the Illuminati as your Jewish contingency, and I don't have time to go through all the names here on this clan map of Scotland, but you'll see the Kennedys, which is a top 13 Illuminati bloodline. You'll find the Stewarts, who are good friends with the Rockefellers. You'll find the Morgans up here, for instance. Who hasn't heard of Morgan Guarantee? And here are the Sinclairs. They were given a hereditary leadership of Freemasonry and are members of the top 13, the top 13th Illuminati bloodline, the Merovingian Holy Bloodline. Throughout the world, Satan's empire is built on Gnostic knowledge. Okay? Gnostic knowledge, this hidden knowledge. My apologies that I'm only getting on the tail end of your show, but maybe we can do something here for 25 minutes.
All right, everybody. We have Fritz Springmeier here. He's joining us late on the show. Just want to say thanks for coming on. I definitely tried to fill the spots as much as I could. I was planning on asking you a bunch of questions in regards to your research and stuff like that. So I did the best I could to keep people going and keep people up to date, and I do thank you for joining us right now.
I just it's been a hectic day, and we neither you or I had been in touch with each other, and I noticed in Skype just before I was to come on, you Skyped me, but I was thinking that I needed to call you, so I was going to various places trying to figure out what the number was to call in, and then
Okay.
somebody named Mike told me to Skype you.
Yeah.
But when I went to Skype you, you were away from the Skype or something. So anyway, without further ado.
Yeah. I sent you a bunch of messages earlier this afternoon, but I'm not sure if you got them.
I was away.
Okay. Because, I did, at 2 o'clock my time, I was sending you messages just to, let you know that I would be calling you or that we could talk and stuff. So,
My apologies.
no problem. So I do thank you for joining the show, though. So for everybody out there, Fritz Springmeier, at the beginning of the broadcast, I was telling everybody that when I first started researching and getting into a lot of the in-depth truth research, especially in regards to the Bloodlines and the Illuminati and all that stuff, your work was definitely what really got me into looking into occult side of the Bloodlines and their practices and stuff like that. So I would definitely like to tell you right now on the show that you're a huge innovation of mine. You definitely inspired me to do a lot of research and do my own work and stuff like that. So I thank you for everything you have taught me through your research. And I want to say that on the show that, I do thank you very much for just being who you are and what you've presented the world, because you've done an amazing amount of work, and I think more people need to know what you've done for the world and the research that you've presented.
Thank you.
Indeed. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got into researching this stuff and what kind of got you into looking into the Illuminati and the Bloodlines and stuff like that?
Well, I felt it was a calling to expose the world, and it also related to something else that I was doing. I had a strange vocation. I was a missionary to bring Jehovah's Witnesses to Christ. Now, most Christians just slam the door in their face, but I tried to bring them to Christ. And I had been doing that for quite a few years. And then I was praying that the good Lord would give me the ability to decapitate the authoritarian head over the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is the Watchtower Society.
Yeah.
And at that point, when I prayed that, I got this inside information that the Watchtower Society was actually just one finger of the unseen hand. The string pullers at the Watchtower Society would just get on the phone and talk to the string pullers at the LDS Church. So it was what we're looking at with all these major religions is they're just like facades. They're all just tools of the Illuminati. So at that point, I realized that it wouldn't do any good to just expose the Watchtower Society, that I needed to take it to a higher level. And I already felt called to take it to a higher level, so I just did. And I did thousands of hours of research into the Illuminati, looking wherever I could, and then was fortunate to uh, meet four people that had been teamed up together in the Illuminati that were trying to escape, and then they would share with me from their perspective. And although they didn't say a whole lot, they were able to steer me in the right direction. And they told me about the importance of the bloodlines. They told me the importance about the trauma-based mind control. And so they got me focused in the right direction. And that allowed me to present information that nobody else had done.
So when you were looking into the Watchtower Society, you must have made the link that the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses was a high-ranking Freemason, as well as the Watchtower Society. A lot of those, I guess you would say the controllers, as you said, of that society are Freemasons. Is that what got you into piecing the puzzle together with Freemasons? Because a lot of the research you did definitely exposed a lot of Freemason secrets, and that's one area of your research that I think a lot of people would find very interesting.
To understand the Watchtower Society, one has to understand the larger context. For instance, Charles Taze Russell, who started them, was the first Zionist. Well, what does Zionism mean? And who supported Zionism? So you have to understand the bigger picture about Zionism to be able to understand Charles Taze Russell. So that's an example of how initially when I was focused on the Watchtower Society, in order to be able to present that, I had to have a bigger perspective. Likewise, what are the Freemasons? It's one thing to say Charles Taze Russell was a Freemason, but what's the implications of that? And what is the significance that a large share of these organizations, Salvation Army, Mormons, Primitive Methodists, the Christian Science, Jehovah's Witnesses, and on, many others, what's the significance that they were all founded by Freemasons, So I had to know the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And of course I had felt called to learn the bigger picture already, but this just really motivated me to do what I felt I was supposed to do anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing too is, I guess it was shortly after I started watching your films and stuff, you were imprisoned, and you served prison time and stuff. And, you see articles out there saying it was an FBI bomb plot to set you up and silence you from speaking. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of people might not know the full details about what exactly happened there, and I might even be one of those people. So I would definitely like to, clarify on that and make sure that I've got the right story right from your perspective on it,
When they arrested me, and my attorney contacted somebody that had retired from federal law enforcement. He said, "What's this thing with Fritz Springmeier?" And the man said, "Oh, we've been trying to put him in prison for years." So they had been trying to find something to put me in prison over, and they hadn't succeeded up until that time. But when they first raided my place, they came in with the marijuana grow operation search warrant, but there was no marijuana grow there. In my garage, they found a box of two brand new fluorescent light bulbs, and they held those up in front of me and said, "Oh, these are grow lights." And they found I had a barbecue, and there's barbecue rocks that go into the barbecue, and I had a package that said what the rocks were, but the guy held it up and go, "Oh, these are hydroponic rock." They're not hydroponic rock, they're barbecue rock. And then I had some tomato food from my large garden, and he goes, "Oh, this is what he's growing his marijuana with." I knew they didn't have a case against me, so they couldn't charge me with growing marijuana because they found nothing.
Hmm.
Although they told the press that they had busted a big drug dealer,
Yeah,
they
that's.
lied to the press,
Hmm.
and so a lot of people thought that I was a drug dealer. But the thing of it is they couldn't charge me with anything because they found nothing. Um, um, and they weren't going to admit to the press that they had spent like $90,000 on this big raid and didn't find anything. So they told the press that they had busted a big drug dealer, but they couldn't do anything. And then friends of mine like Tex Mars had been warning me. He was going, Fritz, they're trying to send you to prison. You know, people are telling me that they're trying to set you up. Well, my reaction to that is, Mark, what am I supposed to do? Just go into hiding and run? Then they win. They
Hmm.
win automatically because I'm not going to be able to carry forward my work that I'm doing, exposing them if I'm running. And if I'm running, it makes it look like I'm trying to hide from something. So my attitude was I'm just going to stay put. And eventually they found something that stuck, although they had to break a lot of laws to send me to prison. Um, the judge ended up telling the jury to find me guilty, and there were a lot of weird things. The only thing that they accused me of is they said that I knew about a bank robbery, and then they bribed three criminals to come into court with hearsay, and they hadn't really proved anything, but obviously the jury felt like if the federal government had gone to all this much trouble and the judge was telling them to find me guilty, that hey, there must be some reason to find them guilty because there was no evidence presented against me. In fact, my case set a new standard. If you find my case in the federal law books, you'll see that it's notated as setting a new low standard for what evidence is needed to convict somebody, which is nothing. And the
Wow.
judge kept saying, like a mantra, he kept saying, well, circumstantial evidence can be used to prove anything. If you think about that statement, circumstantial evidence can be used to prove anything. Okay, I heard on the radio that Santa Claus is coming to town. I saw in the mall a Santa Claus with a child on his. So Santa Claus must exist. There's
Yeah,
all this circumstantial evidence. That's how flaky the thing was.
absolutely. And I think even on Wikipedia, I know there's a Wikipedia page or article about you, and it even says on there. I mean, it's definitely biased against you. I would say, I definitely. And there's an image of you on Google. If you type Google Images, it'll show it. It says FBI bomb plot, and it's got your picture there. And did they really try to say that you were gonna blow up a building or anything like that, or is that misinformation? Misinformation. Okay, yeah.
I was not prosecuted for blowing anything up. I know people have looked at that and they've decided to call me the Unabomber and all this other crazy stuff. No, um, they did temporarily charge me with um, attempting to do a bombing or something, but they dropped it because there was no evidence connecting
Yeah.
it. So they made a lot of show, but there wasn't anything of substance to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely sounds like you were the victim of a smear campaign, a planned out and calculated smear campaign at that. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the information you were presenting, it's fundamental information, and it was definitely stepping on people's toes. And yeah, they were trying to silence you. And I was explaining earlier in the broadcast that this is a technique they've used time and time and time again on countless people that are actually doing something positive and changing the world. I mean, and I definitely feel that you're one of those figures in the history books that have done their work to try to change the world for a better place. And I see your posts on Facebook. You're posting about health, and you do care about people, which is a wonderful thing. And it doesn't take long for people to see that that you are a caring individual and that you couldn't have possibly done all that stuff. So I don't know. Out of all the years that you've been doing this, what do you think are some of the more recent things that you've been researching? Because I'm not sure if you're still researching into the Illuminati. I'm sure you've done tons of research on that and already exposed that. But what are some of the most recent subject matter that you've been trying to spread information about?
Okay, yeah, recently, the last 2 weeks, I've put out a lot of heavy duty articles exposing new stuff about the Illuminati. I exposed where the Bitcoins came from. The Bitcoins were a project that the Illuminati created to do an end around because the National Security Agency and some of these other groups were out of control. They didn't have total control over them, and they got spied on by the NSA just like the rest of us. And so they just decided we're just going to create our own system that's above the NSA, and they did that. And so the Bitcoin system is actually far more. It's not just the Bitcoins themselves are just a small part of it. The Bitcoin system is a system where every economic transaction in the world is pulled through their system, and they monitor it. So they one-upped the National Security Agency. That's one of the recent stories. And then another recent story that I put out was about the biowarfare. They have invested, trillions of dollars and decades of research in bioweapons. They have things that will kill a person. They have things that will just make you sick or do things with your mind or your body. They have all kinds of different things that they can throw at us. And interestingly, if you look at the influenza plague at the end of World War I, it started at Fort Riley. And then there's been a couple other major plagues that have come, and they started at U.S. military bases too, which is really suspicious.
Yeah, yeah.
The point being is they have the ability, they have the means and the motives to use these things. And when we're weak, will be an ideal time, after there's been famines and wars, then send in a plague and finish us off. Mm-hmm. And the head of the Illuminati, his goal is to genocide over 2.5 billion people. At least 2.5 billion of us are going to be killed. And so we're going to start seeing that in sometime in the future. But in the immediate future, in about 18 months, we're going to watch the U.S. dollar collapse. I've been watching the dollar, like I said, I've researched the New World Order for a long time before I started writing about it. And I was watching the economy back in 1978. And they have done a lot of tricks to keep the economy going. It could have, the house of cards could have collapsed any time since I've been watching it, but it hasn't. We had something in 2008, but this next crash is going to make 2008 look like child's play. So the U.S. dollar, and I'm not saying this with a smile. I mean, I hate to see all the misery that's going to come. But I know that those people who are listening that are able to hear this will appreciate me saying it, because, fear of the unknown is worse than knowing what's coming and when it's going to come. So you've got less than 18 months to prepare for this. Before Obama leaves, we're going to see the dollar collapse. And when it does, none of our worlds are going to be the same. And the Illuminati, because I get inside information, the Illuminati have chosen Hillary Clinton to be the next president. a lot of us don't want to see that happen. Our reaction is, no, no, don't you got a second choice, please?
Yeah.
Find somebody else, not Hillary. But, you know, it's their show to run, and that's who they want. Hillary happens to be high up in the Illuminati hierarchy. She's a grand dame. She's always outranked her husband, Bill. And she's worked real hard to become president. And she controls the Democratic Party. So, unless there's something really strange happens, that's who we can expect to be our next president. And she's cold.
Oh
Her
yeah.
She's got ice in her veins. And even when she was in high school, kids called her sister Frigidaire because she was cold as ice back then.
Huh.
And,
Yeah, definitely. She's it is strange too that you have a woman vice president and then an African American president, both in the same uh, team. You know what I mean? Because there's people protesting, saying women's rights and black rights, equality, and all that stuff. And it's crazy how they are presented both at the same time. And then you're saying here that you believe Hillary Clinton will be the next president. And one thing too, you said you like get inside information and stuff like that. I do remember you hearing you talk about in your old seminars that you deprogrammed some Illuminati mind control victims. How did you get involved in that process?
well, there were four people that had been teamed together in the Illuminati, and they were trying to escape. So they became a support system for each other, and they were having a lot of miracles happen, a lot of incredible things happen to help them break free. And then a friend of mine who knew how many thousands of hours of research I'd done into the Illuminati, he happened to walk by him one day, and he's a real personable person, and he heard this group of ladies use the word Illuminati. So he turned around, and being the type of person who can strike up a conversation with anybody, he goes, "Hey, if you're interested in the Illuminati, you've got to meet my friend. He's the expert. He's done all this research. He's written this book, and you've got to meet him." So we arranged a meeting, and then once I came into their life, they shared information with me, like I was saying, that steered me in the right direction. But they were all having to deal with the Illuminati's total trauma-based mind control. And so I didn't have any experience with that mind control. I had met program multiple personalities before I met these four women, but I had never tried to deal with the mind control programming. But in trying to help them, I had to learn in the School of Hard Knocks what would work and what wouldn't. And basically what I discovered is up until I came along, nobody was really dealing with the issues. The one lady, Cisco, well, all of them actually, but speaking about her specifically, and this applies to the others also, is that her therapist was dealing with the front altars, only the surface issues, but the therapist was getting paid well, so the therapist was happy, and then the therapist was telling her client that she was getting better, so the client was happy, and then the Illuminati was continuing to use their slave, their member, because she was still plugged into the programming, so they could give programming codes when Cisco was not in therapy. They could call over the phone or other ways, and they could still continue to use her because she had deeper parts that were loyal, that were programmed. So everybody was happy but me, because I was watching this situation. I was going like, no, no, no. This lady wanted to be free from the Illuminati, and they're still using her. So that's why I stepped in to try to break the programming and deprogram her. And, I was going where angels fear to tread, but I stepped in, and my life got absolutely nuts for 5 years, absolutely crazy. It
Hmm.
was like that movie Enemy of the State.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like when you say you were deprogramming them and they were that they were mind controlled slaves, would this be MK Ultra kind of mind control?
Yeah, it's the same thing. There's different names: Monarch Programming,
Hmm.
MK Ultra. CIA is probably using another project name besides MK Ultra now
Yeah,
because they told the world that they had stopped MK Ultra, so they probably just gave it a different name.
absolutely, yeah. And with all these new medications and all these experimental drugs and experimental chemicals being added to the food and all that stuff, it's got to be still going on. Um, One thing also that I wanted to bring up and ask you about is in one of your seminars you were mentioning the scar tissue on the back of the brain. Now, with these mind controlled slaves from the Illuminati mind controlled slaves, are they taken from a baby or a very very young age and indoctrinated into this sort of like abuse, or are they ritually abused, or is that how they're programmed from a very young age, or does it happen later in life?
It happens even before they're born. Uh, they start the process when they're still a fetus. They have ways to test the fetus for its skills, um, and for its dissociative abilities, and they start traumatizing the fetus so that it's dissociative even before it's born. They also do moonchild rituals to demonize the fetus, and so they start the basics before the child is born, and then at 18 months is uh, the ideal target point for. It's going to vary, from individual to individual, but at 18 months is where they take the good candidates to good programming, really powerful programming centers like Knott's, China Lake, and that's where they do the foundational programming, where they split the mind into multiple personality disorder, and they lay in at the deep levels of the mind, um, the foundational programming.
Hmm.
Then from there they can layer in other programming, um, in other localities.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the scarring on the brainstem, which which causes them to be more susceptible, I guess, to be controlled,
The
or
brainstem scarring
photographic
is
memory and
it's working off of the same principle that a weightlifter uses. You tear your muscles down, and the body compensates by building it bigger. The body
yeah.
realizes, well, I wasn't strong enough. I need to build it bigger. Well, when you scar the brainstem, the the body rebuilds stronger and creates, if it's done right, creates a photographic memory.
Yeah. So it's that's a technique then for these people to be used for their own covert operations or whatever they need them for.
Right.
Yeah. Do you
Some of
believe?
them, some of them actually have pretty incredible photographic memories.
Hmm. So do you believe someone like Kathy O'Brien was? Do you believe that she's been through similar stuff that you've experienced with the people that you've deprogrammed?
What she had and the people I was working with was the same thing.
Hmm.
You know.
How many
Yep.
people do you estimate that are involved in these programs or that are used
Right
for
now,
this?
today, a very conservative number would be 30 million.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a
Yeah,
giant
that's
chunk.
about 10% in this country.
Hmm.
It's getting way out of hand. The young people are heavily programmed. And of course, everyday life does some mind control and programming on you,
Yeah.
but this is really intense. This is a total mind control that's like a million times more powerful than what television's going to do to you.
Yeah. How many people do you think are like on a percentage ratio from your guess are severely manipulated with like the scarring of the brainstem and used for from a young age and raised like that?
Well, right now we have 30 million with the trauma-based total mind control, but not all of them are being used on an ongoing basis. A large percentage have just been turned into sleepers, and so they've had their programming put in, and maybe they will use them later on for something. Like one of the things that I notice some of these sleepers are being oh, designed for is when we have a period of chaos, you know. And of course, when we have some chaos, there's going to be natural leaders that are going to come along and say, "Hey, follow me. I'll get us out of this bad situation." What's really interesting is I've come across how they're training and programming some people to be natural leaders so that when the economy crashes and we go through all of this, the rioting and the chaos, some of these people that will come along to be natural leaders are their people that have been programmed and trained for this.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they're just sleepers.
So until the time comes, they're just on hold until the moment they're needed, and then they're triggered. I guess sort of like Sirhan, triggering for certain events, and then coming out Manchurian Candidate style, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit about the books that you've written? Because I know you've written Bloodlines of the Illuminati, which is definitely likely your most well-known book, but also there's Be Wise the Serpents. You've definitely wrote some good books. Could you list the books that you've written and describe a bit of information about what they're about, I guess?
The first book to start easing into the subject was in 1990. I came out with The Watchtower and the Masons, where I showed the connections between the occult world and the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is really shocking. If you've been a Jehovah's Witness, they make it sound like there's no connection between the Watchtower Society and the world. However, there's lots of connections, and the connections go back to Freemasonry and the Illuminati and Satan, generational Satanism. And then I followed that up the next year with Be Wise as Serpents, which is a systematic study of all of the systems, but especially their religious system of control. And in that book, I go like denomination by Christian denomination, show how they were oftentimes created by Freemasons, led by Freemasons, how their schools, their seminars and church schools are run by Freemasons, and just showed how Christendom has been divided and programmed and controlled. So the body of Christ, in a way, has been hijacked and turned into a program multiple, just like they do with their own people. I followed that book up with the Bloodlines book, which gives who these people are, and some about their well, it gives more than just who they are. It gives interesting information about the different powerful families. And then I had 3 books on the Illuminati's mind control. And then I had a small book, which was The Where and the When, which gave ritual sites and ritual dates. It was called Ezekiel 6:3 on spiritual warfare. And then there was one that was co-authored with Robin de Ruyter, which is a legacy of the top 13. And that was the primary ones. There was, but it's out of print. There was, when I went on speaking circuit for Prophecy Club in 10 major cities, I had produced a book that had all of my all of my overheads were compiled in this book in the sequence that I gave them. And if you've ever watched my Prophecy Club talk, you know that I gave a lot of diagrams,
Yeah.
and pictures.
Yeah.
And I made a book of all of that. So anyway, that's a rundown of the books.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely some great topics and subject matter. Definitely right up my alley too. And as I said, I watched the Prophecy Club seminar that you're doing, the speaking arrangement, and that really blew my mind. Where you broke down the Illuminati pyramid and the family backgrounds, the history, tracing them all the way back to ancient times to Babylon. I believe you traced them back to Babylon, their bloodlines. How hard was that to trace these families back, and what kind of got you onto that trail?
Well, the thing that helped me was insiders telling me bits and pieces. And then once you get steered in the right direction, um, you know, there's a lot of information out there once you start scratching for it. Um, for one thing, they've never really been challenged, so they haven't had to totally hide everything. Um, and one of they even themselves say that one of the best places to hide something is right out in plain sight. So sometimes they hide things in plain sight. Everybody goes by and doesn't notice it. And then someone like me comes along who knows the significance, and I notice it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and that's a great thing to piece it together. Could you name some of the bloodline families, like the most prominent bloodline families?
Yes, and one of the things that I gave in a recent post was how they have had, you could call it infighting, and but the people that took control in the last few years have gone on a pruning campaign, and they have cut back the top 13 families down to 7. So you have the Van Dyne family, you have the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Collins, the Merovingians, which is the holy bloodline of our European aristocracy, and uh, I think the DuPonts may still be involved, and I'm missing one there. But the Onassis family dropped. The
Hmm.
Bush family pruned out. Um, in fact, their attitude at the top towards the Bush family is that the Bush family is a bunch of idiots. Um,
Yeah, one thing I noticed, I was doing some research for a documentary I made called "Eye of the Illuminati," and I definitely used like your research into the bloodlines a little bit. Like I didn't use your research, but I used it as a basis to follow to keep like looking into it. And one thing I noticed, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't include that in the film, is because I noticed that a lot of the bloodlines since you wrote that book have changed. Like they've lost power, some of them, and it was very hard to find information. I was going to ask you, is there any new families or new family names or bloodlines that have came in, or maybe powerful people that have kind of taken this stage since you've written your book?
well, there were no families um, that are within that top 7 that are new from what I had in my Bloodlines of the Illuminati book. But they have been elevating some of the second tier families, have been on meritocracy, because they have shown that they're worthy. They've been developing them, and it's possible that those might be future competition with the ones that are in the top 7. So they have there have been some shifts with the lesser families. When you read Bloodlines of the Illuminati, you see that there's a lot of other families besides the top
Yeah,
13.
yeah,
Um, and exactly how that all fits in is another thing, because probably a large, probably all of the smaller bloodlines tie in somehow with the bigger ones. It's pretty incestuous, and although the genealogy trees have bifurcated a lot. At somewhere back there, the they one of these minor families probably branched off of one of the major ones.
Hmm. Yeah, because that's one thing I noticed is that some of them were intermarried or other people came in the fold, et cetera, et cetera. So over time, and I even think in the future, like you just said, it's bound to change or shift at some point as well. It'll keep shifting as new people come in play, new players get different power. But one interesting thing too is you did a lot of background research on these families and where they originated from, and it was very interesting. Some of the connections you made with the opium trade, the early opium trade, some of the families, and just the shipping and importing and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the Jackie Kennedy going to Onassis after her husband was assassinated, which is one of the bloodlines. So you definitely pieced together some amazing puzzle pieces there for everybody to check out. So what's your what do you think is into the future for the Illuminati? Like, what do you predict is their end game, I guess, and what do you see happening in the future besides the economic collapse of the U.S. dollar?
Well, in the long run, their agenda is non-human, and in the long run, we're looking way down the road now. People as we know it won't exist. They'll be into transhumanism. Uh, the power of reproduction will be controlled by them in factories, and they will they will they need a particular model. They will create it. They a particular type of soldier, and these aren't going to be human soldiers. They're going to be like the super soldiers that they've started creating now, where they have genetics from other things spliced in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's been a couple of the super soldiers that have talked with me because they just considered that they felt like they were freaks and they didn't like what had been done to create them. And but that's the direction we're going is eventually the human race as we know it won't exist.
So essentially, it'll be a synthetic life form that'll be created, and
Yeah, they'll be the perfect workers, the perfect
mhm,
soldiers, and they will be perfectly controlled.
like
Brave New World by Aldous Huxley is kind of a snapshot of where we're going.
hmm kind of like Star Wars: The Clone Wars, where they have all the clones lined up. It's like a drone army, and we also have just hitting theaters the new RoboCop remake, where they're trying to promote the artificial law enforcement, which they're trying to bring into play now, and they've been creating in DARPA laboratories and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely the transhumanism thing is a big thing on their agenda. One thing I noticed too is you make a lot of posts about health-related things, how to stay away from that. Do you have any tips or suggestions on people about healthy living, healthy eating? One profound post I really liked you did was on the sugar levels in different drinks and stuff like that. That was a really interesting article you posted there the one time.
In short, if you go to a store and you're aware of the health hazards of certain things, for instance, sugar is just a poison. And there's sugar put in almost every product in a regular grocery store. And the ones that don't have sugar have like sucralose. But if you understand the negatives of sucralose, you realize they haven't really given you a better option. So when you see all the negatives of the different things, the negatives of the processed food, the synthetic wheats that they're doing, and the fact that the fish is being taken out of contaminated areas, and not only contamination from the pens where they're raised, but also radioactivity and a lot of other stuff. When you get the bigger the details of the bigger picture, you realize basically they're doing a slow kill on us. Everything that's in the supermarket is
dangerous to our health. So the alternative to that is to start taking responsibility for our own food. And there's definitely a lot of ways that we can do that. Um, I mean, you can try to go to stores where you can shop and get sprouts or things that are organic, and you can try to do it that way, and that's good. But another thing is if a person can, is to start a garden, start growing, and then you know what's there and what's in it. And of course, nothing's a perfect solution, with the chemtrails dumping toxic stuff on us,
Yeah.
barium and stuff. Even your garden's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a step above. And becoming aware of how nutrition can be used as your to heal your body, almost I'm going to say in a sense like people use drugs, you can use food to heal yourself. And so it's a big area, but people definitely need to look into that so that they can live healthy. Otherwise, they're going to have all these new degenerative diseases that are plaguing us. And if you look at like cancer, and you look at the rates, the how many people were dying and so forth, and you look back in the 50s, and then you see how many trillions and trillions of dollars they have raised and the government has given cancer research. And in general, there hasn't been any change in the levels of us coping with it. People are still dying at pretty
Yeah.
much the same rates. They kind of fudge with things to try to make you think that things are improving, but they're not.
Mm-hmm. And I just had Judith Ferry Baker on last weekend, and she was involved with covert operations developing weaponized cancer strains for the government. And that goes to show you, like doctors like Dr. Oshner, as well as all the other, like the Cancer Institute. Even look at Terry Fox, who ran across Canada with one leg to spread awareness about cancer research and finding a cure, and people donated millions of dollars to that cause. And all along, the Cancer Society knew that there is cures and there's ways to avoid it, and it was all pretty much brought on themselves through the polio vaccines and all that stuff. So it's kind of an intentional thing, and it's a moneymaker for them. The whole cancer industry is a separate industry almost. It's worth billions and billions of dollars, and it's why they don't want to cure it, right? Can't cure themselves out of business. They won't get that
Right.
money.
And it's important to keep us weak. We're much easier to control. It's much easier to make a lot of money off of us. So there's a whole gang of reasons why. Um, and I really need to take this phone call because I'm going to be leaving on the plane real soon. So can you?
Okay.
I need to mute my.
Oh, no problem. Oh, he's just taking a phone call there. But yeah, I'm really glad that Fritz was able to come on the show and he came on. Definitely awesome conversation here tonight with Fritz Springmeier. He was a bit late coming on the show. I guess there was just a miscommunication there, but it's good that he's on the show, and it's been an in-depth conversation. So definitely would like to speak more to him about stuff. He's definitely knowledgeable in a lot of information and a lot of the truth about what's going on. And as I said earlier in the broadcast before he came on, he's aware of a variety of issues. So I knew he'd be an interesting guest to have on and very informative. So, and down to earth as well. So,
Okay,
welcome
I'm
back.
back.
Right on. So yeah, you're saying you're taking a plane somewhere, I guess?
Yeah, this is the person that's going to pick me up, so I couldn't blow him off
No
because
problem.
he wanted confirmation that I wanted taken to the airport.
Yeah.
So I had to answer that. That's one of the things about having a busy life.
Yeah. Oh, totally understandable. And yeah, like I do appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. I mean, I definitely wanted to have you on as a guest because I knew you'd be a very informative guest with a lot of information about different topics and subjects. And I wasn't wrong, I'm definitely right. And I'm hoping that people learned a lot from this interview for sure. I guess, I know that you can get some of your books, and some of your books are out of print from what I know. From what I've seen anyways, or harder to get anyways. Is there any sources where people could go to get your books if they were looking to purchase them or to get information?
Yeah, the best place is pentracks.com, which is my blog. pentracks.com. Pen like you write with, tracks like a bunny makes in the snow, pentracks.com. And they have a shopping cart there, so that through PayPal you can purchase the books. Try to have patience with me because if you order them in the next few days, because it's going to be a while before I'm able to deal with book orders. But
Do you have any?
that's the best place.
Cool. Do you have any plans for writing any future books, or what is your plans for the future? Any future projects?
I have a whole bunch of projects in various stages. As to whether, any of those go to completion or not is that's a good question. I've been writing these Facebook posts, and I discovered that Facebook is an incredible medium for getting messages out. I have approximately 700 friends and about 9,000 followers. And then, as you know, if I post an article up there, people, 25 or 50 people may share it. So very easily, within a given day, there's very easily like 10,000 people that read this article that I write, and it's for free. Mm-hmm. And so while we have that privilege to get the word out, I've been trying to do that. And like you were saying, you appreciated some of them. I get positive feedback from people. And so that's much more flexible than writing a book, because I can day to day discuss subjects that I feel are important, instead of being locked into one particular thing like you are with a book.
Mm-hmm.
So like last night, Sheila Zielinski, who has a radio show, she was talking with me. This was about midnight, and she says, "Fritz, I wanted to ask you about the royal family." And I said, "Well, that's interesting, because I was going to do a post today about the royal family, but I didn't have time." And she said, "Well, I really, really am interested in that subject." So after she got off, even though it was late, I stayed up till 2:30 and I wrote the article that I had in mind about the royal family. And so there's that flexibility there, that I can zero in on specific important topics, and I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on the royal family? It's interesting that you bring that up. With the new heirs to the throne, I guess you could say. What do you think's in store for the future of the royal family?
The family is very powerful, and they get very good publicity. And from watching the publicity, you would think that they were the ideal, most wonderful people. But the reality of it is much different. And people that I worked with that had been in the Illuminati, and And understand there was far more people than just the four people I talked about, but there were many others. Um, Different ones of these people were witnesses to the royal family participating in orgies and satanic rituals and just horrible things. So there's a dark side to the the British royalty. Um, and historically speaking, if someone goes back as a historian and really looks closely, you'll see glimpses of that. But my post last night was bringing out how, for many centuries, if you even criticized the king, you risk having your head beheaded. So, you know, the British people have typically bowed down and worshipped their king, and and nobody's really wanted to uh, say that the emperor had no clothes. But the reality is when it comes to morals, these are some really dangerous people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you're familiar with Chris Everard. Christopher Everard. He's done a lot of extensive research into the royal family. He's from the United Kingdom actually, and he did the documentary Princess Di, the one about Diana there. He's definitely exposed a lot about the rituals and the occult history of the royal family. He's got some great research on that. And you're absolutely right. They are involved with rituals, sacrifices. There's huge child pedophile rings going on that's linked to that family. It's crazy. You have Jersey Island, all the stuff that's happened on there with linked to the royal family, with all the child skeletons found in the basement and stuff from ritual abuse. And I remember watching this one film where this guy was going there to investigate this, and they had on display these little children statues with their genitals showing, and he was there to investigate the child pedophilia rings, and whoever owned this statue kept putting different hats on every day on these children and facing them in different directions, provocative poses, so that these investigators were driving by to see this. They were mocking them right on the island. I can't remember the video, but it's pretty interesting. And are they linked to the Merovingian bloodline? That's the Merovingian bloodline that you were describing in the Bloodlines. And there's that's where it
They
got
also go
confusing.
back. They also go back to the black nobility, which goes back to the Guelphs and Italy.
Yeah, because I was really confused when I was looking into the Merovingian, because it seemed like it dates back so far, and there's so many different branches and family crests that were involved in that. Um, but what's your belief on the whole bloodline thing, like the royal bloodline essentially coming from Christ and that whole thing? What's your opinion on that?
I know that within their own circles, uh, they have this belief that they are descendant from both Christ and Lucifer. You know, um, who knows? It you know, I I can't make a judgment call as to whether there's any validity there. I know the standard Christian view is that Christ did not have a wife. Um, and uh, I don't think that we can say anything definitive one way or the other because, you know, like when I was Amish, you could not be a anybody of respect until you were married. You know, the same way with rabbis back then, you were not a rabbi unless you were married. You know, the idea of Nicodemus coming at night and addressing Christ as rabbi, you know, we know you're a rabbi sent from God, you know, that wouldn't have happened back then unless he was married. And if you've lived in that kind of a culture like I have, you realize it. But but if you grow up in United States where it's meaningless whether you are married or not, it doesn't hit you. But uh, but it could have gone either way. There's suggestions that Christ was married. Um, so that kind of puts me into the realm of having to speculate,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, so I don't know if there's any truth to their inside belief or not.
Mm-hmm. Because I know Dan Brown and all that. He put out those movies, Angels and Demons, and all that. And I believe that was exactly what you explained in your seminar. Actually, how they give you 90% of good information and 10% of it's disinformation. That's the poison in the well that sets you off. And that was definitely one of the profound things you said. That really, you're actually the first person to bring that to my attention. It was a few years ago when I watched that, but that's helped me filter out good information and bad information. Definitely very helpful. And it's true. People, that is one of the techniques that they use. And that's
Exactly.
I don't know. That's very hard to say. It's like you said, you can't really find the evidence to prove that but they do claim it. I'm sure that the Masons too. Some of them believe that they're descendants. That's why they have the Knights Templars, the Protectors, and all that stuff. I believe that's. And they also practice a bit of the New Age religion and stuff. I believe that's what they're trying to bring forth, is the New Age, the destruction of religion, the destruction of all that stuff, and the birth of atheism and non-spirituality, and just I don't even want to think about the future in that case. You know what I mean? Without spirituality, where there's something missing there, I think. And you are a religious person, from my understandings. I was just wondering like what religion you subscribe to, and if you could explain a little bit about your beliefs and stuff like that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I understand your question. Um, from from my vantage point, I stay away from religions, and I try to be a spiritual minded person. Um, I'm a follower of Christ, or I use the Aramaic name Yeshua, but Christ is just the the it's an English form of Christos. Christos being Greek for the Anointed One or the Messiah. Um, so I believe in Mashiach, um, Yeshua HaMashiach would be the Hebrew. Um, and if you look at Christ's teachings, and what he taught, um, very few people that say they're Christians are trying to follow those teachings or even aware of them. He said, love your enemies. He said, do good to those who despitefully use you. He didn't say, do a preemptive strike on Iraq and drop 500-pound bombs
Yeah.
on innocent civilian houses and blow them to dust. Um, so, and I'm sure you don't buy the baloney that our second president, Bush, was a Christian. Um, they use all of this propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Um, y- you know, he was no more a Christian than
Anton LaVey.
yeah, Anton LaVey, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, I try to be spiritual, but the religious part of it, like waving incense or ringing bells or uh, feeling like you have to go to church every Sunday and sit in a pew and be yacked at, that's all religiosity. So I try to stay clear of that. And one of the things is, while we're on the subject of spirituality, God works with all men. it says in the Word of God that He's no respecter of persons. So He's working in your heart, He's working in my heart, and He's giving all of us freedom of choice to make our own decisions. And so the whole idea that, I should force you to believe like I do is ludicrous, because it's meaningless. To force someone to convert to your beliefs is meaningless if you're a follower of Christ.
Yeah, and as you've seen throughout history, they have tried to force that religion on people using violence, the Spanish Inquisition, and all that stuff. And they've used religion to colonize and destroy entire populations. And I'm on the same level as you in a way. Like, I'm a spiritual person. I don't subscribe to religion. And when I was younger, I was duped, I guess you could say. I was listening to like very satanic music and into very dark imagery, so I got sucked into that kind of world, and I was a victim of this mind-controlled slave that you're talking about, the unknowing mind control that they put into you. I mean, I thought it was cool to go out and shoot people in video games and blow people up, and violence was like really cool to me. I'd laugh about it, and that's just the programming when they target children too and teenagers for this kind of violent material and stuff, so that when they grow up they're disassociated from spirituality and they're just hateful, dark beings and stuff. And that's the religion I think they're trying to bring forth into the future. I think is just a bunch of people with negative intentions and developments. But yeah, being spiritual is something very important, I think, because it does connect you to everything in a way. You feel more connected and positive. There's a sense of belonging there and stuff. So yeah, I wasn't sure like if you were religious or spiritual, because I know you did talk about Christ and the teachings of Christ a lot in your seminars and stuff. So that's one thing I was wondering about, because you were definitely unearthing some crazy materials, and you don't hear too many people that are followers of God in a way talk about that kind of stuff, because they're actually part of it in a way, because they belong to the church, or they're Freemasons or what have you. So very difficult to disseminate that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess we are running out of time. I guess like we are definitely past because you came on late, but I do thank you for spending the extra time on the show to do this interview and stuff like that. I think you answered some really great questions and informed people of some very important topics for sure. Is there any links you want to give out or anything like that?
No, I think we've covered our bases pretty good. I appreciate you having me on. Again, I apologize for not getting on sooner, although I had tried for a while. And thank you for your patience and continuing to work with the show, even though your star guest didn't appear.
Oh, hey, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
People
So
came to.
that's a good example for the listeners for how we need to walk day by day, and that is, we're going to be thrown a lot of curveballs. We're going to be thrown a lot of strange things every day in the future, but we have to keep our cool. And that's one reason why I believe it's important to have the love and the peace of Christ, so that when these things hit us, that we can center ourselves and continue.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And like I said, I do thank you for coming on. Like, I was a bit worried. I didn't think you were going to come on because it was getting closer to the end there, but I do thank you for reaching out and coming through. I'm glad we got connected. And if you ever want to come back on the show, definitely let me know. I would love to have you on again for another in-depth conversation for sure.
Let's do another show. It may, with the way my schedule is, we may have to wait for like a month or two, but
no
yeah,
problem.
I would definitely like to come back on, and the next time around, come on when the show starts.
No problem. I do thank you though, Fritz. You are a scholar and a gentleman, I have to say. and I wish you the best in all your endeavors. And anybody out there who's not aware, check him out. He's on Facebook. He does a lot of posting. Subscribe to his posts on Facebook. Check out his website, pentrails.com. Pentracks.com. Definitely check that website out if you're looking to get his books. I'll be hitting that site up probably not this month, maybe next month. I'm going to try to get your book, Bloodlines, because Bloodlines is a book I need in my collection. I read a lot of books, and that's one book I haven't had a chance to get because every time I've seen it, it's been pretty expensive to get it at some bookstores and stuff. So, and even on some websites that are carrying it, it is kind of a pricey book, but it's huge, full of information, well worth the money in my opinion. So that's on my list, my to get list. On the top of the list is your Bloodlines book. So anybody out there, that's how you can get a hold of Fritz. And I do thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Good night. Have a good one. And there we have it. Fritz Springmeier on the show on Unveiling the Truth. It's great that we... Oh, there we go. Sorry, I guess it didn't switch over. But there we have it. That was a great interview with Fritz Springmeier. I definitely wanted to have him on the show. I was actually kind of worried there at the beginning of the show that he wasn't going to come on because it was getting later. But I guess there was a miscommunication. I mean, I sent him a couple messages earlier in the afternoon at 2 and at 5, but he didn't reply back, so I wasn't sure. Maybe I thought he was away, or he said he was busy. So it is great that he came on the show to discuss things, and it would be great to have him on for a full, complete broadcast next time. And I'm just going to take a quick look here at the chat room because I'm not sure if there's any people left. Oh, still 9 viewers. Awesome. Thank you guys for sticking around and listening to the show, even going past the broadcast time. I mean, I usually am done at midnight. It's 1:45 right now, so I do thank you guys for sticking with me, and I thank Fritz for coming on the show to do this extended broadcast. I guess when I'm done this broadcast, I'm going to edit it and get it all up online, and I'll keep it as is, I guess. I mean, I don't really want to edit anything, but I mean, post it online, and because I did speak about a lot of good information, I think, at the beginning of the broadcast when I was covering time. I mean, I might have been rambling. You be the judge of that if you want, but I had to do what I had to do, and the broadcast is good. So I guess we'll have a almost 3-hour broadcast today for the Fritz Springmeier guest show. And I thank you guys for tuning into the show today. All you devoted truthers out there, the viewers that are in the chat room, and anybody who's going to watch this video afterwards, I do thank you for checking this out. And until next time, next week we have Payday Monsanto. He'll be coming on the show. Payday Monsanto will be an excellent guest. He's a truth rapper with a lot of information, and he's going to definitely be saying some very, very in-depth, interesting information. And then following that is Hitler's escape from Germany. So until next week, thank you for joining me on Unveiling the Truth, and thanks to all you devoted listeners out there for tuning in tonight on the Truth Broadcast Network. So until next time, peace, folks.